From your discussions? Nothing. No questions. Okay, good. Okay, what to do? I mean, I've got to talk. Okay. Yeah.
When you say to study your mind, do you mean to sit in meditation or to walk in meditation or to lay down on meditation, observing what's happening?
Okay. The reason to do single point of concentration, this amazing technique that Buddha taught, that came from the Hindus, is to get some concentration so your mind's more focused. So we know in general to do anything well, you've got to have good concentration. Do you agree? So it's the same here. So the job we're trying to do, so the reason to get concentration, which happens, by the way, to have wonderful side effects, some wonderful bonus results, but that's not the purpose of them. The only reason to have concentration for the Buddha is so that you can get more and more skill at and seeing, hearing your thoughts and going ever more deep, unpacking, unraveling, ever more subtle, ever more subtle, ever more subtle, removing from the mind the conceptual nonsense so that we can eventually be liberated. So you, obviously, the better your concentration is, the better your session at observing your mind in your seat. But in the end, as you get more skillful, and because most of us, unlike Geshe-Lama Kontrog, who went to the mountains, gave up everything, and then was able, with full concentration and the greatest yogi, to go to the subtlest level of his mind and do the real work. But most of us, we won't do that probably. So then we spend our lives, maybe some practice in the morning, some practice in the evening, but we're living throughout the day dealing with life. Well, this job of seeing your mind has to be, as every second. So the more you can do it informal with concentration meditation, the better you are able to do it during daily life. So the benefit of doing a 5-minute session every morning even is that you're developing the skill to step out of your head, and you utilize that ability that while you're driving and while you're talking to your husband, while you're dealing with the dramas, you're also noticing your mind and actually working with it, changing your nonsense stories, saying positive things, not saying the negative things. You get better and more skillful at that job every second of the day.
Am I correct if I say that the essence of the Buddha's path is meditation?
No,
okay.
Not at all.
Can you correct?
Absolutely not at all. Wrong.
Wrong.
Yes.
Can you correct me so I can be right?
The job of being a Buddhist is to achieve Buddha, Sangye.
Yeah.
That is to rid your mind of all the nonsense misconceptions and to grow the virtue. That's being a Buddhist. Concentration meditation happens to be a skillful technique that enables us to do it more and more skillfully.
How come that Shakyamuni spent so many years and so many time sitting in meditation?
Doing the work. He was
the
doing the work at a subtler level. Eventually he'd completed the work, but he's also doing it while he's eating his breakfast and going to the toilet.
Of course.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So the concentration meditation is simply a skillful technique to access the microscope of your own mind so you can do the job really quickly and well. But every second of the day, your mind is working, so you must do it every day, and that's it. But meditation isn't the point, no. Look at the bodhisattvas. Listen, look at the bodhisattvas. They go from life after life after life. They've got 2 jobs. We're going to go into this now when we do the final stages of our Buddhahood. One part of their work is to go from life after life working with sentient beings, being kind, digging the rubbish, cleaning the dishes, having husbands and wives, that they're living ordinary life with their eyes open, being compassionate and kind to sentient beings. And then in their meditation, they're realizing wisdom. So it's both. Meditation on its own will only bring you liberation, and that is nothing in comparison with adding bodhicitta to it, which is working with sentient beings.
Yes, because we are talking about Mahayana Buddhism.
Well, of course,
yes,
I am. What else?
The Bodhisattva, yes.
So what's your question?
My question is meditation...
I answered it.
Of course. Can you answer again?
No.
Why?
Well, you should have understood it by now.
Sorry? No, please, go ahead. No, I'm serious. Please listen to what I'm trying to say now.
I do know what you're saying.
I'm talking to you. Do you understand me?
Excuse me.
Do you
relax. Would you like to relax, please? Thank
I'm
you.
very relaxed.
No, you're not. Having a panic attack.
I try
Okay.
to
Have you been listening to the...
imitate the teacher.
Okay, good. That means you shout at me. Very good, thank you.
No, Robina, please.
So listen.
I love
the
you,
point
you know that.
of being a Buddhist is to develop the two wings of the bird. Wisdom, which is completely ridding your mind of all the nonsense, and grow. And then the compassion wing is by working with sentient beings, life after life, you then cultivate bodhicitta. So the combination of bodhicitta and wisdom is the result. That's the answer. So if it doesn't help you, then you have to say, I'm not happy with that, I don't understand it. Can you know?
I'm really happy with your answer, and I take it completely. And thank you for your passion.
Okay. So meditation, concentration meditation, just concentration meditation, focusing your mind without any discursive thought, is the method to get concentration, so that you can use that concentration in the second mode of meditation, where you get insight into reality. That's the wisdom side. Then you add to that the practice of bodhicitta in relation to sentient beings, and the two wings of the bird are then perfected from these two practices.
How come that Milarepa spent almost decades sitting in caves?
Getting wisdom.
Getting wisdom, yeah. Thank you. Merci.
Il n'y a pas de quoi.
Ah, je savais bien qu'elle parlait français un petit peu.
No, I don't.
Oui.
So is there any danger with not getting cut, not getting, I don't understand this word here. Who wrote it? Who wrote these words? Where's Martin? Who wrote these words? That word. I can't see. What's that word mean? What's it mean, getting out deep meditation? What does it mean? Is there any danger? How do you know? How do you know? How come I can't see the comment? Well, you didn't give me the comment. Or can I have his comments, please? What does he say? I need to know the whole question. Is there any danger with not getting out deep meditation as we lose our five senses? For those of us solo meditators, there is a fear of getting into deep meditation. I'm really sorry. I don't understand. I'm so sorry. I need a bit more clarity, please. Cherelius. Let's just see what he says. Thank you. Any other questions while we get clarity here? Yes. Context. Who said those words? Who said those words? He said these words. Theravada Buddhism, where deep meditation is the goal. Hang on a sec. The wisdom wing is Theravadan Buddhism. It's the same in Mahayana Buddhism. There is no difference. Meditation is, first kind of meditation is concentration. It's a skill that came from the Hindus. It's not Buddha. He didn't invent it. The Hindus did. And the purpose of that is to get concentration. The purpose of that is to get concentration. That brings many good results, but it's not the purpose of being a Buddhist. The purpose of having concentration is now you've got to get wisdom. You've got to get insight into reality. So the first reality is Buddha gets us to get insight into impermanence. Buddha gets us insight into karma. Buddha gets us to get insight into all these different things that he says are reality. Then the final one he says we have to get insight into is the way things exist ultimately, which is emptiness. So the reason to have concentration is to get wisdom of emptiness. So we cut the root of delusions, so we eventually achieve our own liberation. That's the Theravadan goal, and that's the wisdom wing in Mahayana Buddhism. So if you graduate at high school, you will achieve that. But if you're in the Mahayana, you continue on, and you go onto the Bodhisattva path, where you also include many lifetimes of practicing bodhicitta. You continue to practice meditating on emptiness, but you continue to add to it, into the mix, the bodhicitta. Well, she's gone again. Well, she took the piece of paper away. Can you come back, please? I want that paper. Sorry. The only reason you meditate is so you can realise emptiness. If you realise emptiness in a week, you don't need to meditate anymore. You've done the job. Meditation in its nature is nothing special. We make it so holy. Is the goal deep meditation? I'd really like to suggest to you, Cherelius, that I think you might be mistaken in thinking that Theravada the purpose of the goal of Theravada Buddhism have deep meditation. What for? What are you doing in that meditation? The purpose is to realise emptiness. The purpose is to cut the self, to cut the belief in the self. The purpose is to realise selflessness. That's Buddha's point. That's why you diverge from the Hindus. And the only reason you want single-pointedness is because you can do it more cleverly, more brilliantly, because the mind is more capable. That's all. And once you've done that, you don't need to meditate more. You've done the job. Now you run around helping people. Then, of course, if you're a Theravada Buddhist, when you die, you don't come back. You've achieved liberation. So is there a danger? No, of course there's not a danger. If you're full of attachment, yes, there's a danger. But if you haven't got attachment, and you know while you're meditating, which is to realise emptiness, which is to get out of samsara, then you will never get stuck in meditation. There's a fear of getting into deep meditation. Well, and I would suggest to realize you don't understand properly what you're doing. I suggest you consult your teachers and really understand why you're meditating. The only reason to have concentration meditation is so you can realise emptiness, get insight. The only reason. When you've got it, you don't need to meditate anymore. It's just a skill. But we make such fuss about this thing called meditation. I'm not being rude to anybody. We mystify the meaning of it, I would suggest. So I'm not sure if you think I'm right. If you want to ask another question, I'll do my best to help. But I'm sorry if I misunderstand you. Someone else? Back there, go on.
So my question is related to the...
Mic's on, darling. Put the mic on. Can't hear you, though.
Now?
That's better, yeah.
Yeah. So my question is related to the non-judgment topic we were talking about earlier, or yesterday, I don't know. I understand this concept very much, and I think that...
non-judgment?
Yeah.
Why don't you say what you think it means?
Well, because we are not in... I cannot read people's mind.
Yeah.
And I don't know what's going on.
Yes.
I should be kind to others and don't judge them.
Don't know what it means. No, it's not enough to say don't judge. Given a simple example. Let's say you see a guy abusing a dog.
Yeah.
Okay. So what does non-judgment mean?
Don't judge.
What do you mean don't judge? I'm not being silly. I mean it sincerely. What do you mean don't judge? Give me an example of what you'd say if you were judging.
I don't know.
Okay then, so be clear, is the point.
No, but my question is...
But darling, you said about judgment, we can't go further till you define that word. I'm really sorry.
Okay.
You said you understood it. But I need to know what you mean by that, because you use the word in one way, I use it in another. We will not communicate. So you have to say what you mean. It's really important.
Well, what I mean is not taking it personally. Don't take it.
Well, that's another discussion. That has nothing to do with judgment.
Okay.
What do you mean by personally? A guy's kicking a dog. It's not personal for you. You're just observing.
Yeah, but my question is related to more like how I take personally when people act.
So if someone kicks you instead, okay. So someone kicks you, then how's you going to be non-judgmental? If someone kicks you instead of the dog, they kick you. Oh, I think I'll kick her now, not the dog. Go on. How would you take it not personally? What would that look like?
I would just let it go. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, what's your question then, precious?
My question
Sweetie
is
pie?
that when it's something related to behaviors that I find are harming others, more specifically when it's something related to that's not sustainable. I know it's not sustainable based on research. I
don't understand, darling. Can you really keep it simple for me? I want to understand you, but can you give an example of what you're saying?
I mean that when I don't know how to control my emotions, when I see a person that's doing something that I know will harm other people based on...
like kicking a dog. You said no.
Well, because I mean that's very obvious.
Well, what is a less obvious one?
Like, for instance, very basic, using some plastic. I know that has...
Okay, so a person uses... okay, now we're getting somewhere.
Yeah.
A person using plastic, and you know that it will harm the environment.
Yeah, and therefore people.
Okay, whatever. So what are you saying? What then would you? What is the question you have now
Yeah,
about
that's
this?
the thing that I feel this gives me like anxiety because I think of all the consequences, but I am
That's right.
aware that not everyone thinks
I
the way
understand that.
I do.
I understand that.
And
I understand that.
and then I feel like, oh my God. But at the same time, I don't have the position for saying anything,
Precisely.
especially because I don't know what that person is
In other words,
thinking.
your simple question is, when I look at the world and see the nightmare of suffering, people killing, lying,
Yeah.
stealing, dropping bombs, using plastic, etc.,
Yeah.
how can I cope with it, is your question.
Yes.
Thank you.
Exactly.
We've actually been saying it about 20 times today, but this shows how it takes us time to hear it.
Yeah.
So you've got compassion. This is evident. You see the world, you see the harm that people are doing that's going to harm the environment and people, and you have compassion. Correct? Right. But then you said, but I get anxious and worried and can't control my emotions. Now that simply proves you haven't done enough wisdom work yet. You haven't given up your attachment yet. Because why you suffer isn't because people use plastic. You don't suffer because a guy kicks a dog. You don't suffer because Syrians are bombing somebody else. You suffer because you've got attachment. And attachment is like a child that can't stand problems. That's what makes you freak out. This is not how we think in our culture. So it takes a while to hear this. So that attachment has a panic attack. Oh my God, this is so shocking, I can't stand it, this is just terrible, oh my God, the whole planet's going to collapse, blah, blah, blah. That's attachment gone berserk, and then it brings anger and aversion, and then you don't know what to do. So the answer to your question is, you've got, compassion is the point. Like I'm saying here, like I'm saying here, like I'm saying everywhere. Compassion, seeing suffering and seeing that people are causing suffering even though they don't know it. So once, that's compassion, but you've got to know what to do in the face of that. So that's what you get from wisdom, from working on your mind, from lessening your fears and lessening your dramas and lessening your anger. So of course the bigger picture in Buddhism would also include understanding the view of karma, knowing why it's happening. And this wisdom gives you clarity and fulfillment and contentment, and then informs your compassion and gives iron and courage and strength to it. So every time you see suffering, you go, oh my God, look at the consequences, no one knows what they're doing. I must never give up working to help others to make the planet a better place. That's the answer.
But I still don't understand why this is based on attachment, because I do believe that me and us in this room will not really be the main ones affected by this
That's got nothing to do with,
environmental
that's not the discussion here.
Oh.
The whole discussion here is the understanding of Buddhist psychology. You don't have to accept it. I can only give you the Buddhist answer. So if you don't know what attachment is, which is, I'm assuming you don't because you just said, I don't know what it's got to do with attachment. I'm not being rude to you, but Buddha's view of attachment is a very specific view. It's fundamental to all the Buddhist view. And it's the source of why we suffer. So if you don't understand that, then I don't know what to say. The Buddha's saying, you see, there's two things. You're conflating compassion with having a panic attack when you see bad things. The Buddha's saying once you've worked on your mind and you've lessened attachment and anger and fears and jealousy and drama, you become so powerful, so self-confident, so clear, so fulfilled that you can't get disturbed. Then you add compassion and you go, oh my God, look at the world, we're all in the same boat making a mess. I must keep helping others. And you never lose the plot. We're not used to that concept. So we assume because you see bad things happening and because you have the wisdom to know that that's a bad thing to do, you have a panic attack. The panic attack is because you've got attachment. If you didn't have attachment, you wouldn't have a panic attack. You just have compassion. Can you hear that point? And that's an interesting concept because we don't think that way in our culture. Do you understand? So you've got compassion is not enough. And wisdom in this sense is the wisdom that comes, the clarity that comes, the strength that comes from lessening your own rubbish, your delusions, your fears, your dramas. You understand? A little bit? Good. Fantastic. Another one. In many talks, including this one, you mentioned smoking quite a bit, both cannabis and tobacco. Well, I was just confessing to my naughtiness. I made the assumption you no longer do. Yeah, that's right. It's 45 years since I smoked a cigarette. And no, 50 years since I smoked a cigarette and 45 years since I smoked marijuana. Why I quit both substances? Yeah, because they cost a lot of money and they make your mind dull. And you become a junkie. I mean, I don't want to become a junkie. I don't want to become attached to anything. And why Buddhism counsels traditionally included nicotine. It doesn't include nicotine in intoxicants. It doesn't include that. Well, maybe it does. I mean, we have a vow not to intoxicants. It includes we don't smoke. Because, well, okay, I'll tell you something interesting. The Tibetan medical system, the Vajrayana model in Tibetan medical would say that nicotine is this really poison herb, like a subtle kind of, and it's connected to this now maybe sounds superstitious, but it's connected to very heavy negative spirits. So we know it causes cancer, but they say in the subtle level, it completely destroys your subtler physical energies, and you don't even bother trying to meditate and get experiences. You couldn't possibly. It's really destructive and causes at a much subtler level, causes so much harm. That's nicotine. Marijuana, this is because it destroys your senses. I mean, in the Buddhist theories, you're trying to get super clarity, super clear, super sharp, and super content, but relying upon any object that's related to attachment just destroys you, because you just become dull and dependent and ridiculous. That's. I hope that answer helps. Pardon? What about it? Well, it's clearly just. Well, there's a really nice story. This is showing how naughty women are. There's this story about this monk who went to. He was a bodhisattva, and he went to visit this woman. And for some wacky reason, this lady wanted him to have sex with her, to kill a goat, or to drink alcohol. So why he just didn't say, "I'm out of here, lady, I'm going, goodbye." He didn't. He tried to help her. This shows he's got no wisdom. So he figured that alcohol was the least of the problems. So he drank the alcohol and got drunk, and then he killed the goat and had sex with her as well. So they always talk about alcohol, from which many problems come. So the simple point is, our senses run the show. We're junkies to get pleasure. So we know that some substances, like alcohol, like heroin, like marijuana, to some degree anyone, they completely destroy your senses. You've got no common sense. I mean, one of the times I was completely stoned out of my brain and paranoid in Austria somewhere. When I was living in I was just hitching around Europe and smoking marijuana and doing other things that hippies do, and living in this big castle in Salzburg. I remember, squatting in a big castle. And I had this really amazing marijuana. Well, it was the worst experience of my life. I was lying in the middle of the freeway, the highway, completely zonked out of my brain. Luckily, someone saved me. Well, obviously, it's not so good for you, isn't it? Well, then I lost all common sense. So anything that does that to you, you're in trouble. It's kind of obvious. It's not moralistic. It's not punitive. The whole point in Buddhism is to get control of your mind, to be in charge of your mind at a gross and then a more subtle level, so you know the hell what's going on, you're super clear, and from this is what comes joy. So Terelius again now, another question. He says, how does one realize emptiness during practicing meditation beyond as a concept, beyond understanding it as a concept? So Terelius, the first step in learning music is you've got to go to theory school and learn all the complicated theories about classical music, don't you? That's very theoretical. You've got to squeeze your brain, learn all the theories. Then you go home and you start to practice it. So you need a piano or a violin or something, don't you? So you start to apply those theories you've memorized, and you look on the little notations on the piece of paper, and they're expressing the theory, and then you put your fingers on the right notes, and eventually you play the piano perfectly, and it's good by the theory. Same here. You've got to hear the theories, the understanding, Buddha's incredible teachings on dependent arising, on exactly what emptiness means, because there are very many different interpretations. You learn this, and there's 3 levels. You first listen to it, you get realizations from that. You then think about it, you get deeper realizations. And then on the basis of single point of concentration, where you've accessed the microscope of your mind, on the basis of analysing it, it triggers a very powerful insight into the reality of it, and you perfect it that way. It starts with a concept. Concepts are a stepping stone to the experience. Theory of music is a stepping stone to the experience of playing. The theory of a recipe is the stepping stone to getting a cake. The theory about dependent arising is the stepping stone to getting the direct experience in meditation about emptiness, which is what cuts delusions, which what then brings our nirvana, our liberation. That's.
How can you explain that Mozart could play clavecin?
Because he's practiced in a past life, dear.
Okay, say that. Thank you.
I don't need to. Excuse me.
Continue.
No, I don't need to say it. I mean, that's evident if you know the answer. You didn't ask me about that. So that's it, people. Any more questions? No, that's it. Yes, go on. Past practice is the word. You play piano because you've done it before. You kill because you've done it before. You're loving because you've done it before. So what's the other question?
Yes, I wanted to ask about karma.
Yes.
Because we didn't speak about immediate karma.
Huh? What do you mean by that?
Because sometimes you get it in the next life, maybe.
Uh-huh.
But sometimes if it's
Uh-huh.
when it's mature, it may be that I have results in this
Very
life
rare.
now.
Very rare to get result in this life.
Pardon?
Very rare
But if
to
I
get
tell,
the result of an action that you do in this life. It's very rare. Most of the time in this life, okay, in your past life, at the time of your death, a few weeks before you found your way to your mother's womb, when you died, at that point, the various karmic, your 4 bank, I joke and call them bank vaults, your 4 bank vaults containing all your karmic seeds from your past actions, they are triggered. And so the first bank vault that's triggered is the main seed that is going to be the cause of you getting this human body. That was triggered. The second lot of karmic seeds that are triggered are all the seeds in your mind that will provide you with your personality traits. You're good at music, you're good at kindness, you're good at football, you're good at killing, you're good at whatever it might be. That's already programmed before you get anywhere near your mother's womb. Already triggered. Third, all the seeds that will bring your experience in this life at the hands of others. People believe you, love you, hate you, lie to you, steal from you. They're already programmed here in your mind before you even leave the past life. So that's the seeds that you planted in maybe 1,000 lives ago, and they will all come together, will all be triggered, ready, and then you find your way into your mother's womb, and then you live out those karmas, you live out those results. So that, or most things that we experience in this life, the actual seed that brought it could be 1,000 lifetimes ago. It is rare that an action you do in this life will bring a result in this life. The actions we do in this life are sowing seeds that will bring results in countless future lives. In general, that's how it works.
so if I did abortion in this life and lost next child,
That's got nothing to do with it.
it's nothing. It
That would be very unlikely. That's the point. That's how we think about karma. Let's say I start stealing today, and then tomorrow someone steals, and we go, oh, that's karma. It sort of is, but what's really happening there is this. One, the particular habit to steal starts, at age 22. The seed is there, and then it ripens and I start stealing. But then also, next tomorrow I get stolen from. That's because the seed to be stolen from, which was quietly lying there from stealing in 1,000 lifetimes ago, that was sort of, that was kind of triggered by my stealing now, but not directly caused by my stealing now.
That's what I thought about instant karma, because
There's no such thing as instant karma, is what I'm trying. I'm just giving a technical answer about how they say it in the literature. It's extremely complex, but in general, every experience in this life, the way people see you and treat you, whether you die or get cancer or get credit in the bank, they're seeds you planted many lifetimes ago, and they are triggered at the time of your past death, and they then ripen as your experiences in this life. What you do in this life is then, it's a bit like if you go out and do the pruning in the garden, suddenly a flower will come tomorrow. The pruning is simply the thing you did to encourage the seed that was already there to ripen. By pruning, you don't grow that, you don't sow that rose seed, but the pruning encourages the rose seed which is already there to flourish. That's how what we do in this life can affect what happens, but you don't sow the seed for it. That's the difference. Huh? Are you clear? You think?
Yes, but I meant that maybe I see.
Can you go closer to the mic, please?
I had seeds before.
What,
Maybe I
darling?
had it in life before.
What, sweetheart? What? I didn't hear
If
you.
I had these seeds,
Which
if
seed?
I planted it,
Yes.
or I don't know.
Being stolen from, for example.
Yes,
That seed
for
is in your
instance.
mind already.
And because somewhere I think that I have different, cops. And when it will be full, karma will
I don't understand, sweetheart. I'm so sorry. I want to understand you, but I don't understand that. Would you like to ask it in another way?
Because I think that sometimes it's not enough. I didn't do something very bad. It's just some bad, but it is bad. And maybe it's just, how to say, accumulate.
I don't understand what you're saying, sweetheart. I want to understand you. So you need to ask me another question in a different way so I can understand you.
It's not just one action which can give result. Sometimes you need to do maybe many actions that you get some, result which you see.
I don't understand, darling. Where did you get this information from? The Buddhist teachings? You're just making it up.
Just try to analyze and think.
I know, but then you're just making up what you think. You've got to get the theory from the Buddhist teaching. This is a very subtle teaching.
Yes, but I read a lot about karma, and if
So it is the Buddhist teachings you are studying. So then you are talking Buddhist
I'm
teaching.
thinking about Buddhist teaching.
Well, then I don't know the
else.
word you're saying. I don't recognize those concepts and those words. That's all. Kaisa wants to say something.
No, but
There you go. There you go. Okay. Someone else. Questions? Yes. Yes.
There was a question yesterday before we finished about dreams
Yes.
that I wanted to
Good.
know.
So what's the question?
Yeah, what was the question? Do you still have the notes?
What is the Buddhist view on dreams?
Okay. So the Vajrayana model of the universe, which is in postgraduate level of teachings, describes how we have gross consciousness, and it's inextricably linked with our gross physical body, this one here. Inextricably linked. So that's the gross level, if you like, even the grossest level of some level of our conceptuality and our gross sensory experiences. Then we've got subtle consciousness, which is inextricably linked with a subtler level of physical energy. And this is similar to the Hindu view, the 72,000 subtle nerve channels of the subtle nervous system, through which are coursing all the subtle wind energies or prana, which are inextricably linked with our subtle mind. All the conceptual stories in there, they're subtle. And then we have these other components in the subtle physical energy. And then we've got very subtle consciousness, which we only access at the time of death or when we're the greatest meditator with the deepest of concentration. So dream mind is subtle consciousness. When your gross consciousness has ceased temporarily, that's called sleep, then you access your subtle consciousness, or it wakes up if you like, and you have dreams. So obviously everything in your dreams is your mind, and because Buddha's view is, since beginningless time, every single thing your mind has ever experienced stays in your mind. It remains there as both an imprint which brings experiences, but also as merely a memory. So our mind is full of billions of memories implanted in there from countless past experiences, most of which we never access because we're living at our gross level. So when the gross level ceases at sleep, our dream mind pops up, and all those imprints that play out as like stories and visions in our mind. So yes, we can learn from that. It's very helpful. It's our mind, and it's our experiences kind of playing out as, people and things, That's the answer. Next. And the greatest yogis, of course, can use that level of their mind. They can go to the subtle mind and meditate. They know what they're doing, All right. No more? Some more? Yes, please, go. Or more on the machine.
I was just wondering about the 8th verse. You didn't say, I didn't understand that you said anything about the 8th verse.
I went through them all. I was up to the 7th one.
I missed it.
Each thing I said about taking the victory from others, that's all the verses. I just said them colloquially. I didn't read the exact words. I gave I gave verses 1 to 6. And 1 to 7. 7 is the one of Tonglen.
Yes.
So I just explained them. But I didn't say the words actually.
Yeah,
but I expectedly explained.
The 7th was the Tonglen, but
I was
wondering about the 8th. Which one was the 8th?
I haven't finished 8 yet. I haven't got to the 8.
Ah, okay, thank you.
So there's another question from another question from people. Analia says, did you use, she asked about the smoking, did I use particular practice to quit nicotine or just mindfulness? Neither of them, Analia. Common sense. When I was living one time in Alice Springs in Australia, and I started to do martial arts, and I'd go for a jog every morning, and there was a particular hill where you could see the sun, so I'd jog up there, and I'd nearly die every time I got up there. My lungs couldn't handle it, and I thought, this is enough. So I gave up smoking. That's it. Marijuana took a bit longer. After my first course with Lama Zopa and Lama Yeshe, in 2 months in Chen Raising Institute, a whole bunch of us went off to the beach, which is this kind of uninhabited beach that's now a full little suburb. And then we sat on the beach naked for a week and smoked marijuana. Then I gave it up after that. That's it. Terelius says, do bodhisattvas know they are bodhisattvas immediately after rebirth? Or they relearn with new life? Okay. Terelius, if you're studying something and you've just achieved grade 2 in music, do you know you've achieved grade 2? If you don't, honey, you're in trouble. So if you're a bodhisattva and don't know it, then you're not a bodhisattva by definition. How could it be? It's impossible. And Tina says, I bought a lovely illustrated Tibetan calendar for this year. Can you tell me the significance of the days marked as Dakini days? Yeah, Dakini is this word for kind of highly realized female practitioners. And certain days in the Tibetan lunar calendar are particularly potent days for doing certain practices in Tantra. But, like, for example, Vajrayogini. She's this amazing female deity, female Buddha, representing purified desire energy, and certain days are good to do practices on her day. So it's like that in the Tibetan calendar, like that. Okay. So, okay. Let's see what we can talk about before we go home. Yes?
So maybe I heard the wrong way, or maybe I did understand what you said, but I try to repeat your answer, the second question. Bodhisattva is aware that he or she is a bodhisattva. Did you say that?
Okay, so I use a simple example first to prove how it would be bizarre to think, to not know that you've achieved something. If you learn to play soccer, you know you can play soccer, right? But you're aware that you can play soccer.
Yeah.
If you've learned music, you're aware you can play music. If you've learned how to make a cake, you're aware that you can make a cake. Would that be right? Would that be right?
Yes.
Thank you. So a bodhisattva is a person who's achieved certain level of realizations. That's in their mind. So if they don't know they've got those realizations, how could you have those realizations?
Okay, I hear you, yes, but is there a danger to be aware and to think that, oh, I realized this and that, and now I feel like, oh, I'm a bodhisattva?
If you're in grade 2 in music and you think you're in grade 3, you're in trouble. It's the same. Listen, Samir.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same, but because it's religion, we mystify it. If you think you're in grade 3, but you're only in grade 2, then you are stupid. If you think you can, if you know you can make a cake, if you can make a cake but think you can't, you're in trouble. So truth is truth. Reality is reality. That's what wisdom is.
Are you a bodhisattva?
Of course I'm not.
Are you not a bodhisattva?
Of course I'm not. Samir, can you just give it a break? Be quiet.
No, but this was very important, really. I'm not trying
Well, how do you know
to tease you.
How do you know I'm speaking the truth?
I'm not sure that you are speaking the truth.
Excuse me, if you are a bodhisattva, you wouldn't say you are. That'd be very arrogant.
Of course.
So I say no. That's it. That's your business to decide if I'm a bodhisattva. That's your job. God, please, give me a break.
Yeah.
Where's my... Can you just tell me the time, please?
Okay.
What time is it? Thank you. We've got 40 minutes left. Enough of you. Sit down and listen. He sits there all day listening very nicely, and now he's gone berserk. Another question. Let's go. Terelius again. Hi, Terelius. Can you use meditation, therefore mind, to heal body or certainly? Of course you can when you're advanced. You can manifest in 1,000,000 bodies when you're advanced, Terelius. You can see the past and the future. You can fly in the sky. You can manifest as a tree. Healing is nothing. Of course you can. You have to learn it though, baby, by practicing on the path. Okay? No more questions. Enough. Okay, what are we going to do the last 40 minutes? Let's look at the... No, that's your business, not mine. Let's then look at the 8th of these verses, and that's It's basically where he says, you know, basically you learn to give up the 8 worldly dharmas and we see things, everything as illusory. So this is another way of talking about ultimate reality. Let's discuss that for a few minutes. All the teachings we've discussed so far in this nice progressive, gradual, incremental way are leading us to the most subtle understanding of reality that Lord Buddha has experienced. But he guides us gradually, first by thinking about karma, then by thinking about the mind, then by adding bodhicitta to the mix, which gives it great power, and now by getting the actual final wisdom that sees the way the words they use to see ultimately how everything actually exists. So of course that concept itself is completely abstract to us, because we don't think we don't see things as they exist. We don't have this level of analysis in ordinary life, you know. So basically what the Buddha is saying in general, and we learn this in junior school and high school, first of all he says one of the main obstacles in our mind is this assumption that we didn't ask to get born, this assumption that someone else made us. He argues with that. He says that's a really ridiculous view. He's not being rude if you have a faith in a creator, but he would disagree with that view. And not because he just doesn't like it, because he says he's observed that there isn't such a thing as a creator. He's not being rude. He agrees that we all can, the Buddha's view is that we can all become this fully enlightened being, a superior being, but every one of us will become our own superior being, which of course if you're a Christian sounds a very arrogant thing to say, but that's what Buddha's finding is. So he doesn't agree with the creator one, and he certainly doesn't agree that our mind is our brain and that our mother made us. They give us a body, they do not give us a mind. That's Buddha's view. So you learn about that when you learn karma in junior school. So by listening to that, you counteract those views, and then it's up to you to decide to take that as your working hypothesis and buy into that view and apply it in your daily life. Second, in high school, he gets us to get closer to home now, and we get to the delusions, to look into the mind itself and identify all the neuroses, the ridiculous, distorted embellishments that have no basis in reality. We learn to see how they are distorted and delusional and causes so much pain and suffering, but crucially how they're not valid conceptual stories. This is leading us now to the subtlest level of wisdom, where he gets us to uproot the root delusion of those 3 toxic emotions, the root one, known colloquially as ego grasping. It's in relation to this is where he diverged from the Hindus, about the nature of reality, about what the self is. So one way of understanding this is in the context of what they call the 2 truths. Things have a conventional existence and things have an ultimate existence. In other words, everything that exists, people, toilets, flowers, lampshades, whatever, have a relative conventional way of existing and then have an ultimate way. And this is his approach, this is Buddha's view, way of talking. So this is a really powerful way to understand ultimate reality in the framework of conventional reality. And this is called the 2 truths. So basically it's like this. He says everything we experience in daily life, people, things, toilets, ourself, whatever, we don't cognize them accurately, and that's even learning in high school. When I cognize Martin through the lens of attachment, the object that I see sitting on that cushion, if I'm in love with Martin, if I have attachment for Martin, isn't the Martin sitting on the cushion. I have embellished, as Lama Zopa says, this attachment, and all the delusions decorate on top of what is there, layers upon layers of characteristics that aren't there. We get that. I see him as divine, as perfect, as the cause of all my happiness. It's an exaggeration of the reality. That's not what's sitting on that cushion. That delicious cake I see, vibrating deliciousness, begging me to eat it, is not the cake on the plate. And then when I've eaten 4 pieces, the disgusting, ugly, revolting cake on the plate is also not the cake, because now aversion has taken over and over-exaggerates the cake's ugliness. We spend our lives going from pillar to post between these ridiculous delusions, believing in what we see, Buddha says. And that's why we suffer. So we get to the subtle, real, heart of it problem the root delusion that is in what informs the other delusions. And this gets us to the very deepest actual ontological status of what actually is existing. Of course it's difficult stuff. Buddha's an amazing guy, you know. So, conventionally we establish there's a cup. What's a cup, Mummy? We have to define it. We have to be on the same page. That's why I was asking you, what do you mean by that word? I'm not just being difficult. Because if we don't have the same definition, we're not going to communicate. So then, you know, my mother will say, well, darling, that's a cup, and it's a flat-bottom container. And I can hear those words, I get it, I understand it. That's the first part of the definition. It's conventional reality. But I'm not happy yet with. But Mummy, but what does it do? What's its job? That's the crucial piece of a definition. Well, sweetie pie, it holds my tea, she will say. That's the definition of a cup. A flat-bottom container that holds tea. That's its job. That's its function. This is a huge thing to get clear first, conventionally. Then we're all on the same page. But don't even accept that she says that yet. Don't just believe her. She has to prove it. We believe anything anyone tells us. We're suckers, you know. So she has to prove it. So she'll get her tea and she will pour it. And we will both see that it fits the definition. It holds her tea. But still that's not enough. We then have to check up in ordinary society and see if there's any other cognition or definition of such a phenomenon that is contradictory to that. So once we establish it's not, we sign the contract, we shake hands, we tick the boxes, we all agree. That's a cup. And that's conventional. Now we can begin to discuss its ultimate reality. So let's take the phenomenon called a person. Person, self, I, me, they're all synonyms. So a dog is a person, a Buddha is a person, a human is a person. We're all persons, or selves, or I. These words are the conventional term for a person. I forget what the definition is. What a person is. It's a funny definition. So anyway, that's conventional. So we are one of those. We're not a cushion, we're not a cup, we're not a toilet. I mean, we could function as a cushion. I mean, someone could sit on me, that's okay, then you can call yourself temporarily a cushion. That's fine, because you will function as a cushion. As long as you can function as it, you can call it a new name. That's why that woman in prison was so brilliant. I am not in a cell, I'm in a cave. So she didn't just make it up. It functioned as a cave where she was locked in like some of the great hermits and could meditate day and night. So that's a correct statement. But in this case, we're discussing a human, a person, not a human, a person, a self, an I. So conventionally we're one of those. Now, this is what Buddha's saying. All the phenomena in the universe, these delusions, the ordinary ones, the branch ones like attachment, anger, jealousy, and the root one, they all have the same function. They over-embellish certain qualities. That's why we don't see them properly. It's like you've got a 50 krona note, you think it's 500. You're embellishing it. You're not seeing reality. So that's what Buddha's saying we do across the board. This is happening all the time. So why we suffer, he says, is because of these delusions. So that's why our job is to remove the delusions. And one of the functions, one of the processes there is to argue with them. Then in meditation, the penny drops and you get the experience of that truth. So, Buddha presents the shorthand for how things exist conventionally is this lovely phrase, dependent arising, interdependence, that everything that does exist, everything in the universe without exception, exists in dependence upon various factors. That there's nothing that doesn't exist interdependently. There's nothing that doesn't exist in dependence upon something else. Things are dependent. It has a really powerful meaning in Buddhism. So Buddha then presents this in three ways, and he's arguing in each case with various views that prevailed at the time. So the first one he argues with, and this is really what you get when you get cause and effect, that there's an I in here that's permanent and unchanging. He says that's plain ridiculous. So he gives you karma, cause and effect, that argues with that. Then he says the next one, and I'm sort of conflating these two views now. The second subtler level of dependent arising is everything exists in dependence upon its parts, its bits and pieces. And you won't find anything there. So a cup exists in dependence upon its bits and pieces. And you won't find any cup there apart from the bits and pieces, because the cup is nothing other than the coming together of the bits and pieces. So let's use the phenomenon called I. So roughly speaking, Buddha's saying that we believe from the depths of our heart that there is in here, this is the parameters of this person called I, in this case, we believe 1,000,000,000% from the depths of our heart that there does exist in here somewhere, walking hand in hand with all the other bits and pieces, as my friend Pende says, a particular part, a special part, a boss part called I. He says, what a load of rubbish. Not only isn't there one, you don't need one, baby. Of course it's hilarious to us. Don't be ridiculous, we say. Well, they learn this for 40 years in all the literature, and they go meditate for another 40 for the penny to drop, to see the truth. And this is not even the subtlest level. This is a really gross level. Let's look at this. Let's analyse. Let's do some little kind of analyses to see how it's a silly view. One of the many arguments in all the teachings they talk about, we have to look into, there's many different arguments you can use to argue with this. You have one, dependent arising is the main one, but another one is this business of, they call it, you know, if there's something does exist, you've either got to have one thing or more than one. There's no option. So let's look at that. I will say to you, oops a daisy, I'm about to say to you I have a lid, but I don't now, so there it is. So I've got a lid, a table and a cup. So if you were to look up over here, you'd quickly see with your eyes certain shapes. You'd hear me say certain words, and you'd quickly want to verify that that's true. If I just said I have an elephant on my table, and you look, you'll quickly see that I'm not speaking the truth, won't you? So it is helpful, isn't it, if what comes out my mouth has valid referent objects. That's called speaking the truth, and it's kind of helpful. So quickly you can verify my statement at an ordinary conventional level, no fancy rubbish, just simple. You'll quickly see that in fact I mentioned 4 phenomena. I, table, cup, lid. Agree? So you'll tick the box and you'll trust Robina because she sounds like she's speaking the truth. She hasn't lost the plot yet. So I just said there are 4 phenomena. So if you're going to prove this, this is the point now. What it means is, if you've got 4 phenomena, you've got 4 phenomena, this is the point, that are separate from each other, that don't depend upon each other for their function. So this is the name of the person I, just conventional. The name here is accurate. This is an I. And if I walk out the door, the table's fine, isn't it? The cup is fine, do you agree? And the lid is fine. You agree with that? So that means this phenomenon is independent of those phenomena. The existence of this phenomenon doesn't depend upon these. That makes sense. You can hear that, can't you? We're separate. In this simple sense, we're separate from each other. You agree? So that means you can have 4 separate phenomena. So that you do each one the same for each of these. Well, lid's a problem because it does need a cup to be a lid. That's a difficult one. So we'll say grape. Get my point? Say grape. For a grape to function as a grape, it does not need a cup, it does not need a table, and it doesn't need Robina. Are we with you? With me here? It's real simple, isn't it? That shows you've got 4 independent phenomena, in one sense of being independent, separate. They don't need each other to function. Pretty clear. Now, I'll make another statement. I have a nose, a hand, and a foot. Now, without analysis, you can prove it's true. Okay? It's true. But we have to do the analysis. Let's go further. For this to be a true statement, it has to be identical to the previous statement. We have to find 4 phenomena that are separate from each other. Can you hear this? Let's do it. Foot. There it is. For the foot to walk, which is its job, it doesn't need a hand. You agree with that? For the hand to hold my cup, it doesn't need a foot, does it? Do you agree with that? Do you agree with that? For my nose to blow snot, doesn't need a hand or a foot. You agree with that? So what's the fourth phenomenon called? Okay, good. So we have to point out a phenomenon, a distinct phenomenon that is separate from the hand, that is separate from the nose, that is separate from the foot, and indeed separate from all the other bits. And we believe, in a gross way, there is one of those pieces in there. So Buddha says, don't be ridiculous. So what would you like to suggest what this fourth phenomenon is that is not the hand and not the other parts? Would you like to give us some suggestions of what the I is? Because we certainly believe in it. It's the first subject. It's the subject of all our conversations in our head. I did that. We say I have a hand. Yeah, don't we? You insulted me. We say, don't we? So clearly we believe in this one. So would you like to tell me what it is? What's this I? Because we've got to search for it, Buddha says. And if you find it, he's happy. But he says you won't. So tell us what it is, this I. Okay, any ideas? Any suggestions? This independent I? Any thoughts? Be brave. Come on, say anything. What? What do you... That has no meaning. We're looking for one phenomenon. We're looking for one phenomenon called I. Who said that? Perfect. But we've just covered mind. So listen, what are the parts of the person? There's two, body and mind. You agree you've got thoughts, feelings, emotions? That's mind, right? So that's covered. That's one of the parts. Body, we've got parts of the body, and we have parts of the mind. So they are the parts. They are the parts. We're looking for a piece that's not body and not mind. That's the point. You with me? So what, any suggestions? So be brave, say anything, it's okay, we all do the same thing. Huh? What did you say? What did you say? You mean your I is called emptiness? I'm looking for an I. Well then be quiet then. If you think there's no I, then don't, you just confuse things. I'm asking you for what you think the I is. What's the I? Okay, that's very nice tasting. That's a very delicious one, that. There are two things we do. We either think there's this little I that's like the landlord, like the puppeteer that runs everything, like the boss, like the inner creator. I will do this. I am running that. I have that. I said this. That's the first one. The other mistake we make is exactly that. We then say, oh, but the whole of me is I. So good, let's analyse that. So if a whole of me is I, that means my hand is my I. My nose is my I. You agree? You're saying that, aren't you? Well, if I say that, why would I say, I have a hand? It's two things. If my hand is I, that means the I and the hand are synonymous, and you wouldn't find separate phenomena. They'd be the same thing. So in other words, as Lama Zopa puts it, the base can't be the label. There's no benefit in saying, I have a hand, because you're saying the hand is the I. You wouldn't say it. And then as many parts as you've got is as many eyes you've got. And that's evidently foolish. So they're the two main gross mistakes we make. We either think all of his I, or there's an I in there that runs everything. And we've got to argue with both of those mistakes. Yes. What? A concept is thought, and we've covered thought. So what are you saying? You mean I as a concept. You mean merely a concept. Yeah, of course it is. It's merely it is that. That's the subtlest meaning. But that's the right meaning. But until we realise that, it is indeed only a concept. That's the correct answer. But I'm trying to find, because we all believe there's an I. Do you ever say I? When someone's mean to you, do you say I? Well then, okay, you still believe there's an I, so we've got to identify it. Any other suggestions for where the I is, what the I is? Huh? Well, I'll tell you the one you haven't said, which is the first one we usually say. It's the boss in there, the one that runs the show. Let's do another analysis from a different point of view. You'll see this one. This is a very interesting one. Let's do an analysis of what's involved in doing things that we do. Okay, this is like a really interesting kind of logic again. So let's say, you know, the example I use is I'm holding a cup in my right hand. So I do that automatically now because I'm familiar with it. I'm programmed in it, aren't I? So we don't analyse. But what if I lost my memory? What if I had a stroke? You'd have to train me again, wouldn't you? And it'd be a lot of work to train me, wouldn't it? So what you'd have to do is, like, talk about IKEA. You have to start writing down all the pieces that make up Robina that are playing a role in holding a cup. So the first thing is you'd have to then talk to me. Well, you've got to have your thumb there, Robina, and your index finger and your middle finger and your pinky, and then the wrist has to be this way and your thing has to be this way and the ligament does this and the elbow does that. You'd have to say all that to me. You'd have to map it all out for me, would you not? And eventually, if you did a really definitive list, you'd have many, many, many parts of the body that all play their particular role in holding the cup. Do you agree with that? So the thumb does one job. The index finger's not arguing with the thumb. Go away, you're doing my job here. They all got their own job, haven't they? You get that point? Each is a specific job. It's a really good analysis. Like when you build a building, you've got to know each screw does its job. The screw doesn't do the nail's job, and the hammer doesn't do the other. Each does their own bit, and the total is it makes up the thing. You with me? So, okay, the first, but to make a list of all the parts of my body that are involved in holding the cup. You agree with that? There'd be a lot of parts. Do you agree? Now what's the main part here is the mind. I mean, if this is a dead body, forget about it. No benefit. So clearly the mind is the main player. If you want a main player, it's your mind, your thoughts. So I've got to have eye consciousness, don't I? So I can watch. I've got to have ear consciousness so I can listen. I've got to have good attention, good concentration. There's not many virtues involved in this, and there's no delusions involved in this, probably. It's mostly the mechanics of the mind. Concentration, good memory, attention, discrimination, so I can work things through and do what you tell me. Are you with me, people? So we've got a long list of parts of my mind involved. Do you agree? We have a long list of parts of my body involved. Do you agree? And you could really have a definitive list, couldn't you? Do you think so? So I'd actually end up doing the job. Now the question is this. This is the point. The question is, what role in holding this cup is left over for the precious, precious part called I? What role has it got? This is the question. What role is left over that the body and the mind aren't doing? That's the question. What? Experience is called the mind. That's it. Mind experiences. Mind observes. Mind is doing all that. So that's covered. That's covered. Deciding is the mind. That's covered. Awareness is the mind. That's covered. Are you kind of with me? All this is mind. That's already covered. Yeah? They're the same words, yeah. Any other suggestions of what the role, this is the point, so think of the question, what role is left over? I mean, if the pardon? Action is just doing it. So that's exactly the point. That's the point. There isn't any role left over because there's no I that's needed. So this is the point. This is the philosophical position of the creative view. The creative view that there has to be a boss running the show, punishing and rewarding, is the same philosophical position as that there has to be an I that runs the show. And that's what we believe. But it's an unnecessary embellishment. Buddha says we don't need creating. We do fine making our own mess and our own happiness. And we don't need an I to run the show. We say the word I because it's convenient, but we give it more meaning than it has, and that's the embellishment. So it sounds kind of shocking to say you don't need an I. Because, now this is the point also, listen to this. This is the point now. The first one, the independent I, remember not your one, it's all the I, but the first argument about the I that's separate. This is the point, very simple. As I just said before, my table won't mind, doesn't need the cup for its existence. It won't collapse. They're not dependent on each other. They're separate, so you've got two things. So if there is an I in here, think this. If there is a piece in here that is called I, which we instinctively believe, that isn't the body and isn't the mind, that's the Christian teaching, soul. If there is that piece, we call it I, the Hindus call it I. If there is an I that is separate, listen to this. When you say, you've got such an ugly nose, Robina, why would my eye be upset? Because it's separate from the nose. The eye would be looking on going, oh, poor nose just got insulted. But no, we say, you insulted me. Don't we? Because we believe this one, the eye is the nose. And then the other ones, we believe it's a separate one. So we go between these two mistakes. Yeah. What? No, no, that's made up. There's no watcher. That's the point. That's this witness business.
Yeah.
Okay. No, that's just fantasy. We think that's there.
Yeah.
But no, it's not. There's no witness. Well, all that is this. Every second that we're doing something, our different opinions, anger, jealousy, neediness, attachment, you name it, they are just thoughts. They're doing a running commentary all the time. But we give all those different thoughts the status called I. That's made up. So if you're washing the dishes, I'm washing the dishes, and then I'm thinking, I'm watching myself wash the dishes, and I'm being a good girl washing the dishes. We call that the witness. But that's just called self-consciousness. That's just called pride. It's called attachment. It's called anger. They're just different thoughts. Every one of the things that goes on here is merely a thought, but we give it the status of being the special witness, special I.
Yeah.
It's made up.
What I mean is if you're in meditation.
Speak in the mic, darling.
If you're in meditation, become aware about thoughts. You wonder who owns where does the thought.
So then the point is, then what are you saying?
That I guess in the sense that it feels it's an experience of that it is too
Darling, that's what we, I know
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
but then that's why we call the witness. That's why we call the watcher. It's not a watcher, we give it that name, but all we're talking about is the thoughts that pop up. But we give them the integrated status of being me. It's not me, it's that one moment it's attachment thought. Next moment it's I'm watching myself meditate, aren't I? Blah, blah, blah. That's dual, that's just how we are, but it's not an I watching, it's not a witness, it's a fancy, ridiculous term. It's your own thoughts. Always commenting on what you're doing. It's just thoughts, opinions. I'm good, I'm fat, I'm no good. Why doesn't Martin love me? Martin's watching me wash the dishes. I hope he's seeing me wash the dishes. I'm washing the dishes. I'm going to tell Mummy I wash the dishes. That's commentary all the time. And one of those thoughts could be anger, one could be low self-esteem, one is called attachment to reputation. We've got to locate each thought and see what its name is and what its job is. Do you understand?
Yes,
Good. Any other thoughts about here? Are we clear about things? There is not a separate I. Yes, go down there. There can't be. If there is, it wouldn't mind. That's the point. That's the hilarious part. It wouldn't mind if the nose got insulted or the foot got hurt. The I wouldn't feel it. It's watching, like the cup and the table are separate. They wouldn't be affected by each other. The same here. But we know, this is the point now, wait, we know there is a relationship. But this is the point. Our view of the I is really gross and extra. But there is an I, but not what we think. It's way more subtle. And this is the tricky part, Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking of other words describing I, like soul, spirit,
right, that's the view.
essence,
That's the essence. The Greeks call it essence, and the Hindus call it Atman, self, and the Christians call it a soul. Yeah. Buddha disagrees with that as a separate piece altogether. He says it's an unnecessary extra piece that we don't need and doesn't exist.
All right.
That's his view. Speaking simply, that separate piece, he says. Yeah, that's his view. So, any questions or thoughts about this? Yes. Is that a hand? No. Okay. Okay. Any questions, people?
Is it what we remind us every day when we recite the Heart Sutra?
What? What's the
that
question?
There is nothing.
No, he didn't say there's nothing. Complete
There is
nihilist-
everything and there is
No, he
nothing.
doesn't say that. He says neither of those. Complete
No
misunderstanding.
emptiness.
He says within, he says within emptiness, there is no this and that. He does not say there's nothing. That's nihilism. And that's the biggest mistake we make.
No, yes, I understand.
Well, I'm very happy you understand. So what's your question? Samir, what's your question? I need a question.
Okay, just now, I hear. And just now I can't formulate my question
Okay.
because it's unclear for me.
Good.
Thank you.
So we leave it. So then next, anybody, a question. So now let's, full stop, turn the page, new chapter. Okay,
Yes.
before the new chapter.
Yeah, it
Go
was
on.
just
Go, darling.
the matter of being able to identify where the I is, because you can, if you think about it, I mean, I don't feel that the I is in my hand, but when I, what I try to kind of, I don't know if I could say that it's in my head either, the I, it's, you know, if I remove the head, it feels like it's near to
That's
the heart.
right. So then the question is?
I'm just trying to locate where is
Okay,
the
so the
heart.
point, this is a very interesting
Yeah.
point. Okay, so wait.
Yeah.
This is the crucial piece, and Lama Yeshe talks about this in Mahamudra meditation. Okay, very simply, I'm going to put it in simple terms here. If I say to you, please go and get my handbag that I left in the lounge room, but let's say you're too embarrassed to admit that you don't know what a handbag is. You understand? Now, how could you ever look for it? It could be staring at you on the couch, but you don't know it's a handbag. So you can't possibly search for it because you don't know what you're looking for. Same here. So even though Buddha says there is no intrinsic I, there's no independent I, what he says is we have to develop, and this is the key job in the recognition, the realization of emptiness. Our first step is by much working on our mind year after year, observing our mind, of doing it in meditation. We have to develop a really clear picture in our mind of what the I would be if it existed. And that's the hard work. And the Buddha says once you've recognized accurately what you think the I would be, you, as Lama Yeshe puts it, you will recognize its emptiness in a second. And that's the hard work to do. And that's, so the work we have to do, the first step in realizing the emptiness of the I, is to come up with what we think the I would be if it did exist. There's no benefit in looking until you know that. And this is the hard part. So let's now take another tack on this and look at the word emptiness, which we get really, really, really confused about. We're okay for time? Okay. So, okay, this is a really I find this extremely necessary to talk about because we get incredibly confused when we hear the word emptiness, you know? So shorthand for the conventional reality is dependent arising. Shorthand for the ultimate reality is the word emptiness. So let's just look at the ordinary way we use that word in daily life, okay? I will pick up my cup and I'll go, oh, it's empty. So what does that mean? What happened then? It's an important question. What happened then? Huh? Right, because why? Good, this is exactly the point now. If I go to the crockery shop in the supermarket, you know, when you buy your crockery, and I look at the cups, I won't go, oh, wow, all the cups are empty. Why wouldn't I say that? Sorry? No, what I'm saying is, why do I not say the cups in the crockery shop are empty? Because I don't expect tea to be them. I don't expect tea to be there. This is a really powerful point, the expectation. So if you look in your bank, the extent, you know, if I think there's 5,000 krona there, and there's nothing, let's say, I'll get a shock, won't I? Oh my God, where are my krona? Won't I say that? Only because you expect 5,000 krona. If I don't expect there to be 5,000 krona and you ask me to look in your bank, I'll just tell you the truth. There's no krona here, darling, because I don't expect anything. This expecting is a really powerful point. So we say something's empty or it's not there. This is a particular meaning when you think there should have been something there. If you know you think you've got cancer, you're completely freaking out, you're going to die, you're preparing for it, and then suddenly you go to the doctor and they say there's no cancer. What you just discovered then was the emptiness of cancer, didn't you? And that's a delightful thing that's a delightful emptiness to discover. You don't have cancer. You don't say, I am empty of cancer. But that's the meaning, isn't it? You're so happy to discover there's no cancer. So okay, now, one extra point. This is my way of saying it. The way the Buddhism talks, the way the mind works, the mind's always called the subject. And whatever it cognizes is an object of that state of mind. And every state of mind we have always has an object. So the grossest eye consciousness has shape and color. Ear consciousness has sound. Conceptual consciousness has its ridiculous objects, many which we make up. Subtle consciousness has its object called emptiness, for example. But then when eventually you've got them completely merged as if they come together. But every state level of mind has its own object that it cognizes. Mind just can't exist without an object. That's a bizarre meaning. Mind is by definition the cognizer. So it always cognizes something. So the way I like to put it is mind always cognizes nouns. It's a funny way to say it. You'll hear my point. So if, let's say, another example, let's say Samir is colorblind. And every time black is presented to him, he sees pink. Let's say, okay? let's say. So he's making a mistake. We know his eyes are mistaken. He's cognizing here something that doesn't exist here, which is exactly what Buddha's saying we all do. So, how do we help him? We don't bully him into forcing him to believe it's black. He could do that, but pink always appears to him, so it's really confusing for him. So we fix his eyes. It's very easy, isn't it? We fix his eyes. You with me? You with me? We fix his eyes. Then I present black to him again. So it will be logical to think that when now his eyes are fixed, he's going to see the truth, isn't it? That he's going to see it's black. You agree? You agree with that? But no, first he will say this. He'll go, oh my God, it's not pink. Won't he say that? Why? Because he expects pink, doesn't he? He's programmed with it being pink. He gets the shock of his life. So what he just cognized, using Buddhist language, is the emptiness of pink. Can you hear that? Can you hear that concept? The absence of pink. It's a really vivid concept. And it's a very real way of saying what the mind cognizes. Can you hear that point? If you look in your bank and you think there's 5,000 krona, what you cognize is not really nothing. You don't cognize nothing. You cognize a phenomenon called the absence of your precious 5,000 krona. Are you hearing that? Can you hear that? When you look in the cup, you don't just see nothing. You see the absence of tea. You get that point? When you look in the room, looking for somebody, oh, but the room's empty, you don't just see nothing in the room, you see the absence of people. Are you hearing the point? So this is a really important point about the meaning of emptiness. Okay. If the reality is a zero in the bank, that's an example of that's an analogy for nihilism. Nothing. So now listen to this carefully. Samir looks in the bank, because it's his precious 5,000 krona. The object that he cognizes is called the emptiness or the absence of his precious 5,000 krona. You get that? Can you get that? Clearly. The object I cognize is nothing, because I don't expect 5,000 krona. So can you hear how no krona and the absence of 5,000 krona are completely different objects? Can you hear that? Simply speaking. Can you hear that? Can you hear that? That proves that emptiness is not nihilism. So as Dalai Lama says, it's not as if you pull everything out of the parts and say there's no I, there's nothing left. That's nihilism. And it's a really nuanced meaning that's hard to get. We should first get it at least conceptually clear. So, Buddha is saying, when we get concentration, subtle concentration in samadhi meditation, and we've done all the research and done all the meditation on dependent arising, blah, 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 all the logic, all the things, conceptually, it's more subtle, gets more subtle, it gets more subtle, and one day, at one moment, we will see for the first time with our subtle consciousness the reality that there never has been, isn't, and could never be an independent I. And the phenomenon you just cognize is the emptiness of an independent I. You don't see nothing. You see the absence of an independent I, the I that you thought was there. You get me, people? So it's more nuanced than saying you see nothing. And that's, as Tsongkhapa says, that's why to listen to emptiness in the context of the two truths is the most perfect way to not fall into the abyss of the great mistake. To think, oh, well, we all say emptiness like that. Well, it's all empty anyway, it doesn't matter. That is nihilism. It is not the reality. That's the worst mistake to make. So as Lama Zopa says, when we have realized the absence, the emptiness of the independent I, it's as if there is no I. But there is. But the I that does exist is so subtle, it's as if it is an illusion. It is as if it doesn't exist. So these are like not tricky yogi words. This is valid for the yogis, and it's so important to hear this because the two truths demand that we have these two truths together. Right now we have the two mistaken conceptions. We have the extreme views. When we hear emptiness, we hear nothingness. When we hear dependent arising and we hear the Buddha says there is an I that does exist in dependence upon this and that, we go, oh, thank God there is something after all. Grasp. So here we over-exaggerate the status of the I, and here we under-exaggerate the status of the I. We become nihilistic. These are the two extreme views that we fall into all the time. So it's so crucial to get the right understanding, first intellectually, of the meaning of dependent arising and the meaning of emptiness, and then when we understand that these two aren't opposite, that they come together, and the middle way is where they finally come together. The real middle way is when you're finally a Buddha and you realize the non-contradictoriness and that these two are together. The dependent arising at the same time as emptiness, whereas for us they're like extreme, you know? It's like Harry Potter and his 9 3/4 platform. You're going along and you've got 9, you're looking for 9 3/4, all you do is get to 10. 9 3/4 is like middle way. We think there's only 9 and 10. We've got the extreme views. So we've got to understand the words properly so we can experience it properly, because we can think about it properly and get the taste of it properly. Buddha in his Heart Sutra says exactly this. That you can't have dependent arising without emptiness, and you can't have emptiness without dependent arising. He says form is emptiness. Okay, what he's saying is, basically the Heart Sutra is a listing of all the different phenomena in the world according to the Buddhist view. You've got the 5 aggregates, which are the components of a person. You've got the 12 links. You've got the 4 noble truths. You've got the this and the that. The 18 constituents, the senses, the objects, and blah. All these different things. And he goes through and says, there's no this and no that. Within emptiness, there's no this and no that. He says, form is the first of the 5 aggregates. Form is emptiness, he says. Emptiness is form. Form is nothing other than emptiness. Emptiness is nothing other than form. What he means by that is really simple. I mean, it's not as I'm so clever, I'm just repeating His Holiness. What it means is this. This is black, right? This is black, you agree? So we can think about black in we can think about black in general, can't we? We know black exists because we've remembered it, we've seen it, and so we can say, yeah, black exists in general, don't we? You agree with me? If you want an experience of black, what would you have to have in front of you? If you want an experience of black.
A black object.
Thank you, a black object. You make it so complicated. A black object. You can have a generality, which is called black exists, but to have an experience of black, you need a phenomenon, called a cup in this case, that possesses the characteristic of black. Do you accept that? So you would so then now let's say his colour blindness, and he thinks it's pink. We sort out his problem. And the first thing he observes is the absence of pink. So do we accept that for him, when he first observes it, once his eyes are fixed, that the correct name of the phenomenon he cognizes is called the absence of pink? You accept that? You can hear that, people. You can hear that, can't you? It's a valid object for him, isn't it? So where does black exist? It's not a tricky question. Where does black exist? Where does black exist? I'm showing you. Where does black exist? On the cup, right? On the cup, right? Where does the absence of pink exist? On the cup, doesn't it? On the cup, right? Yes, right here. Not somewhere in the sky. Oh, there's no pink. Where is there no pink? On the black cup. Are you hearing me? Good. So, another one. You say, oh, where was my 5,000 krona? So what I cognize is the absence of my precious 5,000 krona. So where does, if there were krona there, where do they exist? Where? In the bank account. Where does the absence of 5,000 krona exist? In the bank account. Can you hear what I'm saying? So, can you hear the points? Can you hear those words first? Good. So, let's change the word from form to anything. I. This is called I. This is called I. So, I is emptiness. Emptiness is I. I is nothing other than emptiness, and emptiness is nothing other than I. All it means is absence of pink, cup, black cup is absence of pink. Absence of pink is black cup. Black cup is nothing other than the absence of pink cup, and absence of pink cup is nothing other than black cup. Can you hear that? Can you hear that? Can you hear that? Good. So I, the aggregates. The aggregates, the body and mind, is nothing other than emptiness of I. And wherever there's emptiness of I, there will be the aggregates. So where does the emptiness of I exist? On the aggregates. You with me? So that's what it means, emptiness is form. In other words, you can't have emptiness without a thing that lacks something. You can't say, oh, there's no 5,000 kroner in general. There is no 5,000 kroner in the bank. If I put my hand in my pocket, expecting 20 kroner for the poor person, I go, oh, what did I just discover? Oh, I say, what do I discover? No, be more precise. I'm looking for 20 kroner. What do I just find? The emptiness of 20 kroner. And where does it exist? In my pocket. You can't just have, oh, there's no I. There's no anything. It's meaningless. So emptiness is form. Form is emptiness. You've got to have dependent arising with emptiness, and emptiness is dependent arising. You can't have one without the other. That's the point, and this keeps us grounded. And then when we realize dependent arising refers to emptiness refers to dependent arising, we'll eventually get the final Buddhahood of the non-duality of middle way. Are we communicating, people? Okay, thank you. Are we communicating? Okay, good. That's good, thank you. Any questions about that? Yeah.
Yes, I was just thinking about the I, the grasping of the I.
Grasping at the I.
The grasping.
The delusion in the mind that grasps the I. Okay, good.
And I was thinking that possibly it is that experience itself of the I. It's as if we claim ownership of this I.
I'm lost, completely lost. What's your question?
I'm just trying to work out how...
But those words are wrong. In this strict analysis here, those words have no meaning, in my opinion. So just try and ask a question.
Yes, I'm trying to come to understand the grasping of the I.
So you want to understand that... okay, stop. What you're trying to comprehend is the way that ego grasping functions. That's your question. So you're asking, how does ego grasping function? Is that what you're asking?
Yes, and I just had an image of that, an image of what that might be.
What might be?
The grasping...
it's a state of mind. It's a conceptual story that over-exaggerates the status of your I.
Yes,
that's what
exactly.
it is.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yes.
So the question is?
Yes. I saw it as a...
So what? As what?
I mean...
Don't use stories and pictures. That's your trip, but it doesn't help much.
Yeah. No, I just... I mean, as an illustration...
Bye, people.
Yeah. As a way to kind of...
listen
as
to
an
me.
ownership that we want to...
No, I have no idea what that means, ownership.
No.
Ownership of what? Ownership of what, darling?
That the actual this experience is
what of what
of what we I guess the joy of having those
God
aggregates.
Almighty, what are you talking about? You're not discussing emptiness here. I know what you're talking about. You're not discussing emptiness.
I'm talking about the way in which we might grasp on the I.
But I don't know what you're talking about. Joy.
Is as if we are like there's a blessing to have this aggregate.
Oh, I'm really lost, darling. Can we just stop now? It's not. Well, I think it's confusing. It's utterly confusing. Maybe that's your personal meditation, and you should keep it to yourself. But she doesn't want to. She wants to share it.
I'm just trying to.
Well, it's not helping me understand what you're saying at all in any shape, form, or colour.
Okay.
Well, then don't say it if it's not helping.
No, but
you're determined to say it. She wants to say it. So stop. Can I ask you a question? Can I ask you a question? For whose benefit are you speaking now? Yours or mine? It's an important question.
I'm thinking for the benefit of everyone in this room.
Oh, you're very noble and kind that you want to help us understand emptiness.
Yeah, I'm thinking me as well as everyone.
So you think you're qualified to help us all understand emptiness better by giving us your little illustration?
I thought maybe it's a way of sharing or just...
Sharing is meaningless. Sharing is it's only going to be helpful. If it's helpful, then great. We can say it to individuals later. Thank you very much. I'm not being rude, I promise. Am I? Am I being rude to you, sweetheart?
Well, I just try to
I understand
another
that.
word on the expression of grasping to kind of work out the idea of the grasping of the I.
Yes.
That as if it is a way we we want to take in charge of that.
Take charge of
Of
what?
the feeling.
What
of
feeling?
Of the I. Those conditions that create the experience of what we call I
Yes.
in the dependent arising
Yes.
moment.
Yes.
We then grasp that this is something that we own.
Who owns?
That's the question. You know, that is the misunderstanding, a misunderstanding of what that aggregate is, and we try to own it. I don't know how to express it.
Thank you very much. Thank you, darling. Very good. No, keep moving, keep analysing. That's the whole. We've got to do that. We've got to do that. Thank you so much. Wait, just a minute. Anybody else before we finish? It's 4 o'clock going home time. No? Yes? Yes, darling.
I asked her yesterday about the special insight.
Yes,
I'm
that's
still
right.
pretty confused.
Mhm.
If you can maybe use
what
examples that what is the
you have
special insight?
concentration, which is the first mode of meditation, where you get the microscope of your mind very sharp and clear. You go to the second mode of meditation, and in this particular context, you would think about all these logical arguments we're using here, about one and many, about dependent arising. You've learned all those in your classes. You'll go to your cushion, you'll get your concentration, you'll go to the second mode of insight meditation. You will do this thinking through, and because it's subtle, it will trigger an insight, and then you stop into emptiness, and then you will stop and taste that experience. And then you repeat that and repeat that and repeat that until you finally have realized emptiness.
Okay, can I confirm with you about my understanding, listening to your answer? So the object of that special insight is
special insight is the name
emptiness.
of the kind. No, special insight. Yeah, special insight is the name given to the type of meditation.
Uh-huh.
So the job you're trying to do by contemplating dependent arising or whatever it is in your insight mode, where you become discursive, you think through dependent arising, you think through these different arguments we've just done here in your meditation, and at some point it will trigger the insight of emptiness, how there isn't that intrinsic I. So the insight is that, and your mind is focusing on that insight. But the method you use to get it is the thinking about dependent arising. All the different logical arguments we're using in this room now, a few arguments we're using, and the thinking of those will trigger, I get it, there is no independent I.
So that is kind of an analytical meditation.
Analytical meditation is the term that Tibetans use to the first part of the meditation in the insight mode, where you think it through. If you have to realize the answer to, what do you think about? You have to think about 1 + 1, isn't it? If you want to realize the whole sum, 1 + 1 is 2. Your insight is to get the answer. The insight is the answer, isn't it? You want to understand the reality that 1 + 1 is 2. So when you've done your concentration to get your mind focused, you now go to the second mode of meditation, and you now will proceed to think about it. So what will you think? What are the thoughts you will think?
I think, if I do that...
I'm talking about 1 + 1 is 2. In order to get the answer, that 2 is the answer, what will you have to think about to trigger the answer?
Logical analysis.
Of what?
Of, 1 + 1, there's a rule.
Thank you. That's analysis, isn't it? That's analysis.
That's
It's
right.
thoughts, isn't it? And you have to have the correct thoughts, don't you? You have to have the correct thoughts, don't you?
Yeah.
Don't you? You can't just say, well, maybe it's 1 + 1 is 7. Let's give that a go. You'll be there a long time, won't you? So you must have the correct concept first. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely.
You have to have the right words on your piece of paper. 1 + 1 = 2. And your teacher wants you to get the experience of that, doesn't she? That's called an insight. So you get your concentration first. That's your samadhi meditation.
Right.
Do you understand that?
Yeah.
And why do you want concentration first?
Then you can understand the problem quickly or
More quickly,
better.
because you're focused. Now, when you've got some focus, you now go to your second mode, which is the insight meditation. So what's the method you use? Again, I repeat it. What's the methodology you use to trigger the insight into the answer in case of 1 + 1 is 2?
You analyze it.
You
follow
analyse,
the rules.
You
know
know
what's the
you
logic.
have the right words. 1 + 1 is 2. So you might use your blocks, you might use your paper, you go 1 plus, and you get the concept clear, and then equals, and then you go, oh, mummy, I get it. That's an insight. So what triggered it is thinking. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear that.
Why do you look doubtful? So you do exactly the same with emptiness. You first have your concentration. You've been to your class. You've studied dependent arising. Everywhere we've discussed in this room, you take this information. You can't just vaguely think it up. You've got to have the right words. You go home. You have it in front of you, the words written down, or you've memorized them. You do your concentration. You go to the second mode of meditation. So you then open your eyes, you read the words. Well, if it was this, and it follows this, because of this, and she said this, and if it is separate, therefore it can feel. You say these words. You use this logical analysis with your concentration, conceptually, and then it will, then at some point, it will trigger. Oh my God. There is no interdependent. That means there's no independent I. And so you hold that insight for as long as you can by focusing on it. And then when it wavers, you go back to your analysis. That's how you realize emptiness. That's how you realize mathematics. That's how you realize playing the piano. It's nothing foreign to us. We just don't call it special insight and concentration. Are we communicating, people?
Thank you.
Can we say that it's one way to realize emptiness, but there is many ways in Buddha's path?
That's right. Precisely.
Yes, it's very important because I'm hearing
Precisely. And I'm just giving you one here.
Yeah.
And one of the most powerful ones. That's enough, Samia.
Thank
Relax.
you for your generosity.
That's a pleasure. Are you clear? Good.
Yeah.
Okay. So anybody else have any questions before we finish? Nothing else? That's it? All right.
It's not a question. It's a dream I had.
Do we need to hear your dream?
Yes, because
we need to hear your dream.
Yes, because
we need to hear your dream.
No, but I would love to share it.
Why? No, I don't want. I'm really not trying to be rude. I know I sound so rude.
It's okay.
Please wait.
Yes.
Please wait. Please
yes.
wait.
Thank you.
I know. Just wait.
Yeah.
I know I sound rude when I talk to her like this. There's 2 reasons to talk. One is because you want to get clear what you're thinking. Or 2, you want to benefit the person you're talking to. Now, she actually said she wanted to benefit us. That's why she was talking. But in my view, in the West, I want to not be rude, we think everything we think is so special. We demand everybody listens because we think we're going to help everybody. But maybe we don't have the wisdom to help people. So if you want to help us by knowing your dream, I don't think it's necessarily valid here. So I'm happy to hear your dream privately. If you really, really desperately need to tell me, do you want me to verify your dream? Do you want me to say what a wonderful dream? Do you want me to explain your dream? Is it helping you understand emptiness? What is it about? Why do you want to tell us? That's how we think. That's, it's like, do you understand my point?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Thank you.
That's a pleasure. So we'll finish the class. Thank you. Thank you, everybody on the camera. Where's the camera? Maybe it's up here. Is that the camera? Oh, there's one there and there's one there. Okay, hello people, hello people. Thank you. I'm not falling over anymore. Have you taken the falling over off? You shouldn't. You should leave it there. You took it off. Leave it there. So I'm allowed to fall. And people shouting, and it's a good drama, Me doing Charlie Chaplin, Or Buster Keaton. One of my favourite people was Buster Keaton. Okay, so let's finish our little time together, yes? Martin, shall we finish our time together? So we just think, this is the point, as many moments as there have been is as many thoughts we've had, which means as many seeds we've planted. So be so happy. We might remember 99% of it, doesn't matter, it's gone in. It's stored there. So we think we nourish these seeds with our effort, with our practice, whatever it is, So we keep working on our wisdom and our compassion. So we never give up for our sake and the sake of others. That's it, Jangchub, Semchog, Rinpoche, Ma Khe Panop, Khe Gushig, Khe Pa Nyampa, Me Pa Yang, Gong Ne Gong Du, Habashog. That's all. Thank you so much, everybody. Cheers. Thank you. Oh, I've got more questions. I forgot 2 people, I'm so sorry. Carillius and Analia, really doing well. I didn't answer your questions. So I'm going to have to do it privately by email. Sorry. Yes?
So people wanted to make a cut offering to Venerable, and then we would like to have a group photo. And if there's someone who needs to go, please do. But yeah, yeah. I just wanted to say quickly before we cut the live stream, we have people watching from Australia, Mexico, Holland, Colombia, UK, Cyprus, USA, Denmark, and probably a few that we forgot, and many have expressed great love and gratitude for being able to see the teachings, and they feel that they've been clear, wise, funny, amazing, powerful, and a lot of gratitude has been expressed. So thank you, everyone watching around the world.
It's really wonderful these tools, aren't they?
Yes.
Fantastic. The more you use them, the better.
Yes. So if you want to offer a kata, please. I will start, actually.
All right.
Yes, let's do the group photo first. I'll offer this on the benefit area.
You can prove everything's dependent on right. It's all made up by our mind and we buy into it, okay? This is a Tibetan tradition. We have all these fancy ones now. They had these simple little cotton ones before. So you have it, it's a scarf that's folded. It used to be when you go away, your grandma puts one around your neck for good luck, and you come back, you offer one to your grandma, that kind of. And in this context, you offer it. And if you're offering with the fold like open, you think. You make sure it's even, and then you think, may I always be open to this. And if you offer with the fold, guess what? You think, may I never be separate from the teaching, which means you immediately give something that looks useless a meaning. This is proving emptiness. Okay?
Thank you.
Let's have a photo, come on. Squeeze in. Okay, come on, it's all squeeze in. Okay. Everybody, squeeze in.